Mike Nellis is here with me, Don Lemon. Here's the thing. What are we going to fight about today? I don't know if
we can fight about anything. What do you want to fight about? Do you want to talk about the Superman movie being too woke? Because I'm getting a lot of that from my conservative friends.
Oh God. God, that goes into, I actually had to end a friendship over some dumb shit like that. Someone who's like, Idris Elba can't be Bond because he's not white. I was like, wait, what? I
Yeah.
was like, well, Bond's a white guy. He's always been. I said, Bond's a fictional character. It's just, anyways, that's like,
It doesn't care. Unless it's a core part of their identity. Like, I wouldn't make Magneto not be Jewish, for example, but like otherwise it's just really stupid.
well, look, I'm willing to listen to some people for things like that up to a point. But like a fictional character, okay, great, whatever. But then, he turned out to be like a crazy Trumper and
Mhm.
like, almost like a QAnon person. And I'm like, okay, I can't deal with this. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have to just let go. By the way, if you're joining us here, please smash the screen because I joined Mike Nellis and I both on our platforms. Mike, good to see you.
You
Welcome
too.
back from vacation. I'm back from vacation as well. You know what was odd to me? And, I've been writing about it on Substack and I talked about it on YouTube as well, is that I happened to be in Europe, did not hear much about Texas at all, maybe a little bit from mainstream media, but I really got the gist of what's happening, the download, so to speak, from digital and social media
Yeah.
about the tragedy that was happening in Texas. What is going on with the state of American journalism?
Well, I think you've got like fewer and fewer people who are able to do it because they're not paying people. And so they're aggregating the same stories over and over again. I traveled down, I was in Montana last week. I went from Glacier south down to Yellowstone and I traveled down Highway 93. And every place I stopped with my family, like I would read the newspaper at the cafe. And I didn't hear anything about the Republican budget. I didn't hear anything about Alligator Alcatraz. I didn't hear anything about Texas, although Texas may be a few days upcoming at that point. I heard a lot of local stuff, which was good. I actually did a Substack post about this on Monday about this situation at a local library where they were having a Doge cut took away a bunch of Wi-Fi hotspots, and that was interesting to me. But there was not a lot of national coverage about what's happening in Washington right now. And I think unless you're on X, unless you're on Threads, unless you're on Substack, like you're not getting to hear or see a lot of what's happening right now because the media is so. I guess just like they rang it out. It's like a dry rag at this point. There's nobody doing it.
I'm surprised because both of us are pretty tuned in, and I always get news alerts or whatever. But you were, I mean, we discussed this before we went live. You said you did not hear much or anyone really discussing what's happening in Texas as you
No,
were.
no, and I didn't. So, like, I'll give you an even better example. Alligator Alcatraz. I thought that was a joke. Like when I came back online for the most part Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, and I saw a couple people post about it, and I thought it was like something dumb that Trump had said. I didn't realize it was an actual place that had been built, and that they had done this like ridiculous press conference until somebody told me about it like midday Monday. So, like, if you get out of the bubble for a week, there's so much news and there's no context if you're not on social media that you just kind of lose out on anything and you get kind of lost in the mix.
I just wrote about it where, do you remember the reporters of um of Katrina? I said the
Mhm.
reporters of Katrina would not survive right now because they would be told by their bosses that they were too opinionated and they were too emotional. And, they needed to watch their tone. And that's what we needed then, and that's what we need now. We need someone to say, "Hey, listen, you cut jobs at NOAA, right? National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Mhm.
So the warnings were affected. All of that. You have cut staff at FEMA. You have basically gutted FEMA, and on and on. You deserve some. You have some responsibility, a lot of responsibility into what is going on. And
Well, you deserve
go on.
you deserve some transparency and accountability for it too. Like, look, maybe the cuts at NOAA and the National Weather Service didn't impact what happened here. It was a freak flood, but it's a perfectly reasonable
They're
question
not
to go,
responsible for the flood. I'm talking about
right.
the warning and the
A
recovery.
warning system. Well, and the county government had been begging for years, I think, for the state to pay for a siren system in that exact area so they could warn people when shit was going down, and they didn't get it at all. And so the way government should function, it should be, all right, something has happened. Now we need federal, state, local officials to convene and go, how do we make sure it never happens again? How do we hold people who are accountable for malfeasance if they didn't do what they were supposed to do? And right now, even just asking the question, just going, did these cuts impact what happened? Could we have saved lives? Asking the question is, oh, you're politicizing it. Oh, you're being gross and you're just trying to attack Donald Trump. You have Trump derangement syndrome. I don't have TDS. I really don't. I want to know if we could have saved some of those lives. That's what I want to know to make sure it never happens again.
Yeah. Well, but it's not, look, I understand the environment under which the reporters and the journalists are working. So, but look, you have to at some point have a backbone and say, I got to do my job, and you have to do it without fear or favor. But look, by the same token, those journalists are they feel like they may lose their jobs. Their
Right.
bosses are telling them to, watch your tone. All of these things, they're telling them to, be careful, don't criticize too much. And if they're not explicitly saying it, they're tacitly doing it by right by what happens to people when they don't follow those certain rules.
Yeah. Well, and now you have consolidation of the media too. So there's fewer journalists than there ever been before. All the platforms are owned by a handful of people, and like that's always been a problem with media. If you go back like 150 years, it was a handful of very wealthy people who were controlling the news flow. But it's even more of a problem now. Like Jeff Bezos leaning on Washington Post, you have all these localized billionaires who own all the like TV networks and stuff like that. Peter Thiel's been buying up a ton of stuff because he wants to have editorial control. So it's a tricky situation when there's a national tragedy. There's a tragedy in Texas. All these little girls got killed. It's horrible. And like we need fair reporting on it of what's happening. How do we make sure it doesn't happen again? Who's responsible and accountable for it? It's a freak weather incident. Like, let's be clear about that. I mean, the video that I've seen where it like filled up in like 30 minutes like that is terrifying. And we've all been in a situation like that. But again, they've made all these cuts to NOAA, the National Weather Service. They made cuts all throughout the government, and they've done it with a hacksaw instead of a scalpel, which is the way you should do it. And so now what happens when tornado season comes to the Midwest? What happens when hurricane season comes to the South? And I don't think they're going to be prepared for that because Donald Trump doesn't even think we need FEMA.
Mhm.
So,
I'm glad you said that because by the way, I just want to say this before I make this next statement. My heart goes out to everyone in Texas,
same.
no matter who you voted for, right? Especially if you're dealing with this. But I'm seeing a lot of people now, a number of people who were online touting just how brilliant and amazing the big beautiful bill was, and they were happy that it passed, and they were supporters of Doge, and we needed to cut all of these things. FEMA was, they needed to cut the fat. Perhaps we didn't need FEMA. And now that they're in a disaster situation, they're crying out, where's the help? Donald Trump, this is not what we voted for. Treat us like human beings. Those very same people who were laughing and owning the liberals and supporting, all of these cuts and supporting the Trump administration are now fucking around and finding out that
Yeah.
now they have supported an administration that doesn't necessarily have their back, and it is not very good in emergency situations, and that we might actually need FEMA. Not that we do actually need FEMA.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, the Republican Party, they're drunk on their own power and they're drunk on their own bullshit. Like, I have no other way to describe it, is they've created this narrative that everybody who works in the federal government, every bureaucrat, every person who serves this country, and you do serve this country when you work at FEMA. You serve this country when you're in the military. My father was an FBI agent for his career. Like, he served the country, but you're also serving if you're doing a job at FEMA to keep people safe and keep people informed. And we've gone to demonizing people who've spent their whole lives trying to keep Americans safe. And I'm the first person to tell you there's a ton of waste, there's a ton of fraud, there's a ton of abuse in the federal government. And by the way, if we want to start to crack down on it, the biggest areas of fraud, waste, and abuse come from Medicaid and Medicaid fraud from companies. And you can go ask Senator Rick Scott from the great state of Florida about that, who was fined over $1 billion for that through his company. But we shouldn't be demonizing what government does. Government's job is to keep people safe, is to keep us informed. It's to make sure that we can get good jobs and that we have the resources that we need. And part of keeping us safe is making sure we know when there's a flash flood. There was flash flooding in Chicago yesterday where people got trapped under some bridges and it was a pretty dangerous situation. I don't think anybody died. It happened overnight. I read about it this morning. Like, that's scary. It happens everywhere. When tornado season comes, there's going to be small towns that get ripped apart. Is FEMA going to be ready to go in and help those towns? I seriously doubt it right now.
Yeah.
And you can't rely on charity to solve all those problems. We need an organized community government-based response to that.
If we can also talk about lessons in humanity and
Yeah.
how one is supposed to treat their neighbors. Do you see what happened with Mexico? the Mexican president just sent people over to help the people of Texas, even,
Yeah.
I believe, even before many boots were on the ground from American emergency and disaster agencies. Those folks just came right over from Mexico. They didn't say, oh, you guys are treating us like shit. You have demonized our president. You are demonizing and dehumanizing immigrants, whether they are documented or not. But we're going to help you in an emergency because that's what neighbors do. That's the human thing to do. And now, I don't see anybody refusing the help of anybody who came over from Mexico. I'm not hearing anybody saying, build the wall so that we can't get emergency help or services from the people of Mexico. I think that's a lesson in humanity, and it should be, especially for the MAGA folks who really are against any type of immigration.
It is, and what it reminds me of is when Trump signed the big beautiful bullshit bill that he passed this past week. When he signed it, he said, all these Democrats, they hate Donald Trump. Well, I hate them too. And the truth is, like, I don't hate Republicans. I don't hate people who voted differently than me. I don't hate people who live in red states. I want to make sure that they get the same support from the government as the rest of us. And I don't think Donald Trump does. Somebody pointed this out in the comments below. The way Donald Trump handled the wildfires in California was disgraceful, withholding funding, turning it political, making shit up and spreading conspiracy theories. The way the Republican MAGA influencer movement handled the hurricane in North Carolina last year, where there was all that devastation and the Biden administration moved in to help and support people, and then they were making stuff up about how towns were abandoned. It was bullshit. And like, you're not getting that from the left right now. We're not out there spreading lies about what's going on right now. All we're trying to do is ask questions. Did the cuts that you implement make it harder for people to get out? Are there people who are dead that would be alive right now if they had gotten a warning because there had been a siren that would have gone off and given them an extra 10 minutes to make a move? I think the answer to that is probably yes. And that's why they're so afraid of even asking the question. And no Republican in Congress right now is going to hold a hearing on this. They're just going to paper it over and they're going to move on, and nothing's going to change, and it's going to happen again.
Well, I know it's a human thing. Look, people say they don't hate Republicans. I don't hate people. I say
No,
I
I don't hate
certainly
anybody.
I certainly hate what the Republican Party is doing right now. I think what the Republican Party is doing right now is awful. It is horrible. And look, I don't belong to a political party. I'm an independent. But I think Republicans, what they're doing now is pretty atrocious, their behavior. I think it's un-American and I think it's unpatriotic. I think it has become the MAGA party. And for those who say that they're not MAGA, they're certainly going along with the MAGA agenda. They're certainly going along with whatever Donald Trump does rather than looking out for their constituents and the people they are supposedly came to or went to Washington to serve. They're not serving their own, the people in their own districts, in their own states, towns, and municipalities. They are serving one person. That's Donald Trump. It's called fealty and cowardice.
Yep. The way I always put it to people when I talk to like my conservative relatives is like, you might not need the government today, but there will be a day when you need the government. And there are things that the
No,
government
they
is
need the
doing.
government today. Let me tell you why they need the government today.
Go ahead.
Because they drive cars,
Sure.
right? Right. That how do they think they got that? That's socialism. That's government. Their kids go to public schools. Some of them. They take public transportation. Some of them. They have water and indoor plumbing.
Yeah.
Right.
But I meant in an emergency situation. And
Yeah.
I want to kind of highlight this for you is like,
Okay.
look, in my day to day, obviously the government pays for the roads, the government keeps me safe. There's police officers out there. But a couple of weeks ago, I was live on Substack and I had a medical incident in the middle of a Substack live.
You did.
I did. Yeah. I had like a kind of like I slurred my words for like half a minute and it was like basically like a little bit of a heat and medication issue is what they decided it was. But I was on with Glenn Kirscher and it kind of freaked me out. And I cut the live off. And like for the first time in my life, I called 911 and had an ambulance pick me up and take me to the hospital because I was freaked out. I had a stroke or something like that. And I'm fine. Everything is okay. But the point is like, I didn't think I needed the government that day. When I woke up that morning, I wasn't like, I need the government, but I needed to call an ambulance to keep me safe. And they got me to the hospital within 15 minutes of the incident. I was there super fast. I'm lucky to live in a place like Chicago that takes care of people like that, at least in the part that I'm in. But like, I didn't think I'd need it. You don't know when you're going to need the National Weather Service to have proper updates when you're out camping with your family. You don't know when you're going to need an ambulance to get there quickly. You don't know when you're going to need firefighters to put out a fire in your house. That's why we have to make sure that all of these government organizations are well-staffed, well-funded, and well-prepared because there's going to be a time when you have an emergency. And it comes for all of us. It comes for all of us at some point. And unfortunately, it came for these kids in Texas many of whom are now dead, and maybe those deaths were preventable. I don't know, but nobody wants to investigate it, and nobody wants to take accountability or take it seriously. At least the Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump sure don't.
Look, I'm glad you're okay. Everything's
Thank
okay.
you.
It's
Thank you.
all,
Yeah, oh yeah, everything's fine.
yeah.
I walked home from the hospital because I'm a stubborn bastard. I was pissed because I it happened and then I felt fine. And I went to the hospital. They checked me all out. They were like, they did like an enzyme test, and it was like, there's no issue with your heart. There's no issue with like a stroke or anything. So we don't think you had an incident. It was probably just like a blip. Something was wrong. It was that week where everything was like super hot. And I was so pissed off and embarrassed afterwards. I was like, I'm just gonna walk home. And I walked like 25 minutes home. My wife found me like halfway driving. She was picking up our son. She found me halfway home and was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Do you know what you need?
Water, a fan. Let's go.
Do you see that?
That's awesome. You've always got a new piece of merch.
Go to donlemon.com
Let's
and,
go.
and
I
click
don't have
on
a
merch.
single piece of merch, and every week Don's got like a new thing.
Support for the Don Lemon Show today comes from ZBiotics. And I have to tell you about this game-changing product that I use before a night out with drinks. It is called pre-alcohol, okay? ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists who tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. It is that buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for rough days after drinking. So pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So I've used it before, a couple nights out with them margaritas. Hey, I felt my best the next day. And so I'm so glad I took it. So I gave it a try. Started this summer, and it's been a game changer for me. I felt great the next morning. So make sure you take a prebiotic. Go to zbiotics.com. Go to zbiotics.com/slash lemon drops, zbiotic.com/lemon drops to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use lemon drops at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. That's pretty amazing, everyone. So remember to head to zbiotics.com/lemon drops and use the code lemon drops at checkout for 15% off. Never use anything alcohol or anything like this without your doctor. Have you heard that fan dance thing or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Boots on the ground.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have you
So
seen the Have you
anyway,
seen the video from a couple of months ago? Kamala Harris doing that at an event,
I
and she
I
had it just
have, and I've
perfect.
seen
Yeah.
the forever First Lady Michelle Obama doing it as
Yep.
well. Did you want? Can we talk about a little bit more about the big bullshit bill?
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, in that cuts to Medicaid, Medicare. I hear people saying, "Oh, we've got our no tax on tips." They don't understand that doesn't mean that they can write off 100% in tips. They don't understand that there are limitations on how much they can declare. They don't understand that those are just until 2028. But
Yep.
the tax cuts for the wealthy are permanent.
Or permanent. Hmm. Yeah, that's the number one thing that pisses me off. Okay, we have massive, giant, unfettered tax cuts for people who already have so much, and it's that old Barack Obama used to say this all the time. It's, why is Warren Buffett's secretary paying a higher percent of her taxes than Warren Buffett is? And
Yeah,
that is a perfect example of how everything's fucked up. And it's the exact type of stuff that Donald Trump said he was going to fix the first
yeah.
time around.
Well,
He
they
said
got
the
a two
system's rigged.
percent.
I'm going to
They
help
got
it
a
for you.
2%. I believe it's a 2%. Maybe if you're even going to get it, a cut. It's like 2%. I think that's temporary. The wealthy got what, 12 to
Yeah.
13%.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
And then look, um, all of the tax cuts for regular people are temporary and they're limited. If you're doing no tax for tips, it's only on cash tips. And so many businesses, particularly in more urban areas, have moved to have those little like toast screens where you tip that way. That doesn't count. Doesn't count if it's electronic. And it's only up to $25,000. And Don, I don't know about you, but there are very few places you can live where $25,000 is going to get you a single bedroom apartment. There
right.
just aren't.
Yeah, exactly. It's 20, but then also, there are all these stipulations where you have to file jointly and you
Hmm.
can't go over a certain amount of money. And as you said, and if you go over a certain amount of money, then you don't get as much back. And it's not actually no tax on tips. It is basically when you're filing your taxes, you get a certain percentage. It's weird, but everyone thinks it's
Very
like
weird.
just. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you see me?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, sorry. Everyone thinks it's like, oh well, I'm just gonna get 100% of it back,
Right.
for any of for all of it, and that is not exactly it. Can I ask how many people actually reported cash tips? Exactly. That's a good
Right.
one. That's what Jane Burns is saying. Yeah, who does that?
If you're working at a diner, like any of the diners I stopped at when I was in Montana, you're putting that right in your back pocket. You're not telling the federal government I gave you 25 bucks. Like, why would you?
Right.
So again, it's like it's not a real solution. And even like let's talk about this. They added it's a what is it, $1,000 per new baby bonus. And that's their answer according to them. That's how they're gonna make sure that you have the money to send your kids to college. That's not gonna cover the cost of going to college. Even if you put it in the highest yielding possible bond or savings account that you can find, you're not gonna be able to accrue enough money that way. And here's the thing about it. I hate this policy and I hate it when Democrats offer it up too, because Kamala, and I'm gonna criticize my own people for a second. Kamala Harris had a plan, I think it was like $3,000 for a baby bonus. And I understand where that comes from. But the average cost of childcare in America today is like $20,000 to $25,000 a year. So that is not going to help you. And what it's designed to do is turn the tide of getting a bunch of people to have kids. But then we're not building any of the infrastructure that people need to be able to raise those kids accordingly. Make sure they get a good education. Make sure they're taken care of while you go off to work. We're not solving any of the actual problems. We're just putting band-aids on wounds, on like gushing wounds. So
Yeah, but do you think most people really have the wherewithal, and especially folks, working class people? I hate to say like poor people or whatever, but middle class. What does that mean? Working class people. Do you think that they understand? And because I don't, or do they have the financial freedom to be able to, talk about even have a bond
right,
or a college fund for their kids, or for that matter, a lot of folks don't have savings. A lot of
right.
folks don't have a 401k. And so what do all of these alleged or supposed tax cuts, which is not a lot, for working class people, what does that actually mean? You, you,
I don't
you
yeah. I don't
Go
I
on.
listen, I'm there are a lot of people who are stretched and I'm sure every little bit helps and I don't want to like undercut that because there are some people who are going to be helped by this, but it's very small and a fraction of the amount of money that's being saved for billionaires that are going to use it to buy another mega yacht. But ultimately, 85% of this country is struggling. The vast majority of Americans don't have any savings. The vast majority are not able to survive one medical incident. I got the bill for my hospital stay for calling the ambulance. It was $3,000. And
Whoa.
I know it was fucking ridiculous. I'm going to fight it with my insurance provider and see if I can get them to cover it because I feel like they should. But one, I have the time to do that. I have the agency to do that. That's a luxury and a privilege. But like,
Well,
imagine
also
if you
you
were
have insurance.
yeah, I have insurance and the insurance isn't covering it, which is another fucking problem. I should be able to call. I don't want the next time something like that happens, and I'm sure it'll happen someday. Hopefully, it's a long time off, but I don't want to be thinking about how I can't afford to call the ambulance or have to wait to get a neighbor to take me to the hospital or have to risk it and drive myself there. That doesn't seem like a good idea. And so this is how the government doesn't work. And I say this to my clients all the time. The average voter that you're communicating with is somebody that's like a single parent with two jobs. They're lucky if, like, at the end of the day, they can crack open a beer and watch Monday Night Football. They're not following what's going on with the tax bill. Maybe they're
Right.
reading a little bit of X. Maybe they're watching the local news. But as we talked about at the beginning, the local news is crowding out some of the bigger national stories, and they're just focused on process stuff about like local crime. And that stuff's important too. But they're not getting into the meat of it, not because they're not smart or anything like that, or they lack agency. It's because they lack the time and they're tired because people are just getting stretched. America's never been more productive than it is right now. But all the benefits of that productivity is going to the top 1% of 1%. None of
Yeah.
it's trickling down.
Yeah. Another interesting story that that just sort of started to transpire is this. Can we call it Hitler Grok? Like, what the fuck is going on with that?
Oh my God. Well, for folks that don't know, if you've removed yourself from X, which I frankly I don't blame you for, Grok is their AI tool. It's like ChatGPT, but it's built into X. And it was giving answers that the MAGA right considered woke. Most of the answers were just like objective truths about like what was in the budget bill and things that Elon Musk or Donald Trump had said. But Elon promised an update to it for the last couple weeks. It was going to unwoke Grok. And he unwoked it yesterday morning. And by the end of the day, it was calling itself Mecha Hitler. It was attacking Jewish people. It was
It's not.
just
It's
it had
laughable. It's not funny. It's
it's
laughable.
not funny. And here's I just posted about this right before we started is like I haven't seen a single member of Congress, Democrat or Republican, call for an investigation into what happened here. Because there's virtually no oversight of these massive large language models and AI tools from the federal government. And because of that, these guys, like Sam Altman seems to be for the most part like a good faith person trying to build a tool that people can use, but that's his public perception. I don't know what he's doing privately with my data and information, but like Bezos has his own stuff, and then Musk has his own stuff, and China has their own stuff, and there's no oversight or regulation on it. And that's challenging, both because the data they input into it and the guidelines they give it are going to shape the way we consume content, the way our jobs are impacted and affected. And if somebody like Elon Musk goes in and accidentally creates Mecha Hitler, and Mecha Hitler gets access to something more powerful, they're gonna do something horrible. And that's basically like sci-fi movie shit. And I don't want to be an alarmist because I'm generally a pro AI guy, but we need some serious oversight and regulation now. God.
um, what did I want to ask? Oh, and by the way, over at X, the CEO, Linda
Yep.
Yaccarino, surprised. Well, I don't know. I spoke with Kara Swisher about it. She goes, we called it. But are you surprised that she stepped down?
I
Or,
mean,
I
I
don't know,
think that
that she's
I-
leaving? Let's put it that way.
yeah. I mean, I think the timing is interesting. The day after X goes full Hitler for a minute, their Grok goes full Hitler for a minute. She's like, "I'm out of here." I honestly, I don't know. I always thought Linda Yaccarino hiring her was kind of an odd choice. And it seemed like an attempt to turn X into this like giant media company. And like you have experience with that because like you briefly had a show over there, right? And like that was sort of like a bit of like I think a clusterfuck, and you can talk about that if you want to. But like they had this plan for X that they like never really executed on. And she seemed like the wrong fit for the type of company they're now building in the pivot they've made in the last like year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you think that's going to make a difference to the platform?
No, probably not in the immediate. I think it's a question of like where do they want to take it? And X actually feels stagnant to me. I think there was a moment where he took it over. They were gutting it. They started making some improvements, and I'll be honest with you, as like a user, as a power user of X, I kind of like a lot of the changes they made internally to the tool. I think some of the creator stuff that they implemented is good. The creator rewards is good. I mean, I don't make like a lot from it, but like obviously they're favoring like the Laura Loomers of the world. But it wasn't bad, and I think there were things worth copying. But then in the last like year and a half, I feel like they just haven't made any changes other than kind of fucking with the algorithm to make sure that liberal accounts don't do as well. Because anytime some of these right wing influencers like Cat Turd, and Cat Turd is a very real person, if you don't know, anytime he tweets, he gets like 20 million likes on it. Every time I tweet, even if it's good or bad, I get maybe the most I'll get is a couple thousand. It's
No,
just sort of hard.
you think they're manipulating the algorithm?
100%, 100%.
Do you think that this, what was it called? Mecha Hitler? Do you think Mecha Nazi? What was it calling itself?
Mecha Hitler.
Mecha Hitler.
Like
Do you think that?
robot Hitler, basically.
Do you think that had anything to do with Linda Yaccarino?
I mean, you would have to think so. I mean, the timing of it. I mean, I could imagine Linda Yaccarino being, "I'm not happy. I'm not getting what I need here. I need to move on," and be thinking about the right timeline for that, and then seeing this and going, "I'm getting the fuck out of here before it gets worse," because the only way that happens is like, yep, Linda Yaccarino isn't going to go mess with Grok and do stuff like that. That's Elon Musk, breathing down the necks of his developers at X that are trying to create this AI tool and making manipulations to it. And if I'm her, I'd have gotten the fuck out of there too. So I don't know that it saves her reputation though, but I don't know.
Do you think it was a resignation or a time to
It
go?
it reads like a resignation to me, but who knows? I'm sure there's like some public story that they'll come up with together. That's pretty common.
Hey, I guess that's and we didn't talk about the big beautiful bill, but well, we did a little
No,
bit, but yeah. And what else you
no.
got? Anything else?
Well, you wanna talk about the America Party while we're on Elon Musk?
Oh, you think
Don, are
that
you
can
there?
happen? Yeah,
I
I'm here. Can you,
I lost you. There
do
you
you
go.
think that can happen? Do you
Yeah,
really
I
think?
mean, I think it is happening. I mean, he filed the paperwork to create the America Party. I think if he put serious money in, and if he's doing what he says he's doing, the way that he's talked about it on X has been, I'm going to go focus on a handful of Senate races. I'm going to go focus on a handful of House races. If he does that and he picks them wisely, then yes, I think he could probably like peel something off. What's more likely to happen is that they create a third party. That third party starts to take away, 3 to 5% of the vote away from Republican candidates, which is a huge boost for the Democratic Party. Any fracturing of that movement is good for us because our movement is, as much as we're messy and we got a lot of shit to fix, we're largely on the same page right now. It's one of the
But
most underrated stories right now is how unified I think broadly the Democratic Party is.
do you think Elon Musk will moderate in some way if and with an American party? Do you think that sort of mainstream or the, what do you call it, the radical center,
Yeah.
will they, you think that they'll go along with an America party or whatever it is, if Elon Musk
Yeah.
is behind it?
The thing about Musk's politics is that they're a moving target, and so I do think like he will modify where he is. Like he doesn't really care about certain things. Like I don't think Elon Musk cares very much about abortion, for instance. I mean, he said some of the standard talking points on that. So I do think like he'll probably moderate in some areas and he'll maybe get more conservative in some areas. There's probably like if there was a lane for a third party, it's probably somewhere in the like fiscally conservative, socially liberal arena where you could kind of own that and you could see Musk kind of taking Doge from that. But I also think the way that he's conducted himself in the last 6 to 8 months has made him look like a jackass. Um, and CNN did an analysis of this. The number of people who like Elon Musk and are Republican or Democrat and politically active is only 5% of the electorate as a whole of people who vote in primaries. And so it's not a lot of people. And I'm not confident it's going to work because he's the wrong person to do it in the same way that Andrew Yang was kind of the wrong person to do the Forward Party. And I don't know who the right person to do that stuff is, but it's like, it's very hard to get these things going.
We shall see.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
You know who
I
could
mean, look,
create their own, you know who could have created their own third party and it would have worked? Donald Trump. And instead he took over the Republican Party.
he actually did create his own party.
Right.
Uh,
He just took over. And Bernie Sanders could have done the same. Those were two guys that I think had enough cachet and intensity that if they wanted to, they could have broken off from their coalitions and created a new thing. And Trump ended up taking over his party. Bernie ended up staying in ours, which I think was for the best. Um, but I don't think Musk can do it cold like that.
you don't. He's
No,
got a lot of money,
he
Mike. He's
does.
got a lot
Right
of.
now he does. But if he becomes a real threat to Donald Trump, they're going to start pulling his government contracts.
I had, wow, interesting. I had Kara Swisher on for the breaking news about Linda Yaccarino, and she talked about how highly leveraged he is, which
Mhm.
she didn't say it explicitly, but she made it seem like he's sort of in, not, I don't know if it's financial peril, but in some ways it's a house of cards.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a lot like where Donald Trump was before he got reelected, is that like he was projecting a lot of strength in his financial standing, but there's that New York Times piece about how they were in deep shit before he won. And then once he won, he was able to start parlay that into basically like a collection of bribes and the crypto schemes and the airline jet that they took from the Qatari government and shit. So there's a lot of that. I don't think Musk is as liquid as he pretends to be. I think that there are big holes in his operations. I think the Tesla board and the SpaceX boards are going to get very frustrated if they feel like they can't succeed. They might have to distance themselves from Elon Musk. Like if Trump starts pulling SpaceX contracts, SpaceX is going to fall apart like that. It only exists because of government contracts. There's no like commercial aspect of it that I'm aware of. With Tesla, there's sales, but the sales are lagging everywhere for two reasons. One, the entire value proposition for Tesla was sort of this like liberal electric car feel goodery stuff, like the Prius stuff from like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And he's completely killed that. There's no way. Like I'm probably gonna buy a new car, and if I buy an electric car, it'll be like a Rivian, built by the way right here in Illinois. Do you have a Rivian?
I do. I love it.
Is it awesome?
I,
Do you have the truck or do you have the
I
SUV?
just got it. No, I have the SUV. I just got it like
Okay.
maybe a month, maybe 2 months ago, and I love it.
All right. This show is now sponsored by Rivian, and this
It's
is the
not
only thing we're
sponsored
going
by
to talk
Rivian,
about.
but Rivian should hear this, right?
Yeah.
No,
Right.
I do. I do. I'll tell you what. We'll get back to it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it because I don't know what the environmental difference is. There are folks who say it's worse to have an electric car because of the battery and all of that. I don't. I'm not a huge fan of fossil fuels, and I'm trying to get off of fossil fuels. And I had a lot of vintage cars, and I'm selling them. That was my vice. That was my vice. If people have
Yeah.
other vices, mine was buying
My
vintage.
my vice is watches. I like a good watch.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
work hard to buy a couple. Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, it does everything. Like, if you go in the wrong lane, it beeps or it vibrates. It tells you how many miles you have left. It tells you exactly where the car is 100% of the time. You know exactly where your car is. I can leave my dogs in it, and it has the animal temperature
Yeah, I
control.
saw that.
And if someone walks up to the car, it'll say, "Leave me alone. My dad or mom or whatever has me at the temperature," and they'll show them the temperature inside the car. I mean,
Oh wow,
it's just really it's really a great car.
that's
Not
awesome. I mean,
sponsored by Rivian.
I wanna start doing more like driving out to Michigan and, like, going on hikes and stuff like that. I kinda have this fantasy in my head of buying a truck and kinda doing that on the weekends,
Yeah.
just to unplug. But anyway, so the first reason is that Tesla has destroyed their value proposition with their core audience. And then the second thing is that all these other companies have caught up. So BMW has excellent electric cars, Volvo has excellent electric cars, Ford has caught
Mercedes.
up on the trucks. Cybertrucks, by the way, is the ugliest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. I hate them. I don't understand anyone who buys them. If you're one of the people who own a Tesla on this and you're on here with 1,700 people, I love you to death. Please make better life choices because I don't understand it. But there's increased competition, and China's been crushing them in Europe too because there's all these Chinese electric cars that are apparently pretty great. So it's not a great situation, and I've always felt like Tesla stock was overvalued.
Wow. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of tumult when it comes to Elon Musk owned properties, or just Elon Musk
Yeah,
himself.
of
Thank you, Mike Nellis.
course.
We have to figure out too. I got your email. We got to figure out what we're going to call our show.
Yeah, we got to come up with a name for this. Maybe on the next episode, we'll tell people like 3 or 4 good names we like and see what people say.
Yeah. Hey, hit us
Yeah,
up in the DMs. Let us know. Smash the
yeah.
hearts, smash the likes, hit the thumbs up, all of that. Follow us on here at Substack. Also follow me on YouTube and all of the social media sites. Independent journalism is where it's at, and we're trying to hold down the fort, right, Mike Nellis?
Yep. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. You as an independent, me as a Democratic Party hack. But please find me on Substack too. It's Endless Urgency with Mike Nellis. It's my main home. It's completely free for everybody. All my content's free. If you want to become a paid subscriber, it's $8 a month. Helps me cover the cost of things like this gimbal that I have that keeps my phone up. But other than that, I would really love for you to subscribe and be a part of the little community we're building together.
Yeah, same here. The Don Lemon Show, you can find it on Substack. You can find it on YouTube. We're live on all those platforms, and we're live every day, 10
Mhm.
a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, Mike Nellis.
Thanks, Don Lemon. Appreciate you.
See you later.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.